Livescope, it's the deal. And I'm gonna tell you exactly how to find fish with live scoping. And we're gonna use Clear Lake as an example. And if you're having a tough time using your live scope right now, this is the video to watch, okay? So first of all, I'll tell you what live scope can do. You could find fish more effectively rather than using your side scan in 2D and etc. And now, first of all, let's go with how I find fish with Livescope. Depending on the scenario during this springtime. So I guess this video will be more like how to find your biggest bass with Livescope during the springtime, at Clear Lake especially. So on your mapping, you want to check your mapping and you want to check the weather report. Based on the weather report and the wind direction and etc., you want to be able to fish in a little bit more calmer waters. You don't want to be fishing 3 to 6 foot swells. That's for damn sure. That's not fun at all. And so what I do is I map out all the bays, the creek channels, and all the sloughs that go way back for bass to spawn. A lot of the times, these bass will stage up on the outside structure in the mouths or inside a bay where there's deep water access. When I say deep, that's going to be like anywhere from 7 to 10 feet all the way down to 25 feet. So that's the first thing that I do. I look at the mapping, check out all the sloughs and the bays. Second, I go launch at a place that is protected. Okay, so make sure that you're not going to hit 3 foot, 6 foot swells. If they're like 1 to 2 footers, no big deal. You can hit spot lock if you have a trolling motor and etc. Okay, number 2, once I figure out where I'm going, okay, I'm going to launch the boat. I'm going to put the live scope in right away, and I'm going to have the pitch angle accordingly to whatever water depth that I'm in. If I'm in 6 feet of water, I might have the pitch of the transducer a little bit more higher, so that way the bottom contour is flat, has a good flat reading. Now, if I'm fishing 10 feet to 15 feet, I might have the transducer pitch angle a little bit lower, so that way, like I said, the bottom contour is flat and very legible in terms of how you read the structure, how you read the fish. Okay? So when I'm going across a stretch, whatever it's buckbrush, willow brush, or tules, I have my mind set about 90 to 100 feet, and I make sure my live scope graph, the bottom is reading maybe a couple inches from the actual graph. So I'm having up my bottom contour a little bit higher. It makes reading fish a little bit easier. So when I'm going down a stretch, I point my live scope transducer at a 45-degree angle towards the structure. Let's just use as an example as tules, okay, and willows. Point at the tules and the willows on the edge. You'll see it. You'll see the tules on the edge on the graph slowly taper down, and then it would just be flat bottom with no structure at all. That's what you should be aiming for. And I'd say that you have your transducer 100 feet out and maybe have 50 feet from your boat to the structure, and then have the rest of the 50 feet on the structure. And a lot of the times, those bigger bass will set up on the edge of those willows or those tules outside a mouth or a bay. And what I generally use in that scenario is if they're on the bottom and they're on the edge of those, with the structure, I'll throw a drop shot down there. Okay. Now, if I want to find them faster, I'll pick up this weedless 6.8 Kitech and quarter ounce size on a 6/0 beast hook, and I'll cast out there in the structure, and I'll roll it over the top of those willows or tules, and I'll see if bass come out. During practice, if I'll see if bass will come out and try to chase that bait down. You know, a lot of the times they won't commit to that bait, but if they do, thumbs up. If they don't, it's okay. It's not a loss at all. You found the fish. You found where the bass are, and that's where you follow it up with the drop shot when you're in a tournament. If you're practicing, maybe throw a drop shot down there, see them nose down on the bait, dead stick it, feel if they're on, and then shake them off during the tournament. You can check 1 or 2 times, but I don't recommend checking more than 1 or 2 times once you analyze the water and figure out the size of bass that you're actually on. Now, the second way how I find bass is going around bays or sloughs that have a series of boat slips, and that has deeper water access. In the middle of that bay or at the end of a dock, you could check to see if there's bait balls. And when you see a bait ball, it's like seeing a cloud of tiny little fish all huddled together. And a lot of the times when the bass are eating, you'll find 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 fish all inside that bait ball, but you have to move your transducer mount in order to kind of like figure out if they're inside the bait ball. Okay, and all in that area of a bay that has bait, that has deep water access. A lot of this fishing during pre-spawn time, before the spawn, will feed up all on that threadfin shad. You know, you got your bigger bait like trash fish, carp, bluegill, crappie, etc. Still, a lot of the primary source of these bass are threadfin shad as well. You know, maybe if you're in a creek channel or something like that where the hitch are moving up to spawn, maybe they're more keyed on to that bigger bait, and maybe you should throw a glide bait or a big soft plastic bait. But like I said, 100 feet out, make sure your pitch is right so your bond contour is very flat, and just scan throughout that boat slips with a 45-degree angle to figure out if those bass are on docks or not. And you'll see a big mark exactly like this that are generally moving slowly or fast. Usually a lot of those big marks won't stay still, you know, and a lot of those marks are going to be very prominent and glowing versus a cloud. If you see a cloud, honestly, you're probably on moving carp or moving catfish. So those are the ways that I find fish on Livescope. You can try those things out, and hopefully you have, you're successful. Another way that I go is always have the trolling motor on, and you have it at like an 8 or 10 speed variable speed, and you just zigzag around that bait until you find that bait. That's another way. Or you zigzag on the bank, and you point that thing 45 degrees towards the bank, and you just move up and down that bank till you see one of the bottom rollers. And once you see a bottom roller, you can throw that mid-stroll bait and figure out if they're in the mood or not to catch possibly a big bass. And I want to leave you off with one more thing is, a lot of people like to pull that transducer out. A lot of people like to pull it out and make a huge run and etc. But when you're in the general right area where bass live and moving up for pre-spawn to eat, shallow and stage up, keep that transducer wet. Never pull it out of the water, even if you're running. And if that means going out there, spending the extra, $100, $150 on a secure mount, I absolutely recommend it, because you can come across numerous spots that you never known that were under the water, whether it's an edge of a buckbrush or willows, or edge of tules, isolated tules out of nowhere. You could really find them, and a lot of those bigger fish like to roam isolated by themselves on a flat. So don't overthink it. Whatever you learned on your local body of water, if you have grass there, it will fish very similar to what Clear Lake is So if you have grass, tules, you know, backwaters that no one's allowed to get there, that you know fish are migrating into that back area to spawn, it works the same exact way. It works the same exact way at your local pond with grass and a back way of water you're not allowed to fish in. It's the same way at Clear Lake, except Clear Lake, a lot of times they don't have, you know, restrictions on you going into the backwaters and etc. So when you have time, leave that transducer wet. Scan the area, 45-degree angle. If you have good mount, scan it with 45 degrees, right? And make sure that pitch is just right, so the contours are reading just right. And go find yourself some big staging bass during the pre-spawn. Good luck, and stay tuned for more informational videos. And yeah, keep things positive. Peace.